We're getting reports right now that Marvel Studios head Kevin Feige wants the upcoming X-Men movie for the Marvel Cinematic Universe to push a socially political agenda, but he's getting pushed back from an unlikely source, and that's Disney CEO Bob Iger, who wants to clamp down on the political rhetoric that's been pushed in a lot of Disney movies in recent years and go back to making movies that have mass appeal. Now, I personally have my doubts about this, but there has been signs in recent years that Disney as a company has been kind of walking back away from a lot of these divisive political elements in their movies. A big example of that is Inside Out 2. When that was released last year, a lot of people noticed that the movie was free of all political agendas or anything like that. And then come to find out that was by design. Some people working at Pixar said that they were told to go back and remove any insinuation that the lead character Riley was gay in that movie, something that a lot of people could have inferred through subtext that was previously in the movie. So they removed that sort of elements to it. And as a result, the movie was highly successful. No, I'm not saying that's the only reason why the movie was successful, but one thing I can say for sure is other Disney movies that came out around the same time failed at the box office. And one of the complaints about those movies was that they have political agendas shoved in them. Whereas Inside Out 2, people were walking out of the theaters for that and saying, yeah, there's no agenda to it whatsoever. And the movie went on to make over $1 billion. So I think Disney saw that and realized, like, okay, we need to tone it down in some of our movies. Now, obviously, a lot of the movies that have come out since then still had those agenda elements put in them, but many elements like that were probably because those movies were already in the pipeline before the orders kind of came down, and there was only so much that they can do through the editing process. But when it comes to the upcoming X-Men movie, since they haven't done anything on it so far, they're free to basically tackle it in whatever way they want. If Kevin Feige gets his way, according to these reports, they're going to have more of a political element to it. Whereas if Bob Iger gets his way, it'll be something more akin to the X-Men movies that many of us grew up watching. But let's look at this article right here that kind of breaks down what's actually going on with this. X-Men Feige battling Disney over action versus social commentary. Now, actually, just before I really get into this, X-Men as a movie or as a brand is something that would be really easy to shoehorn this type of element into it. So I can see some people trying to defend such a decision, basically saying this commentary was already there, so to speak. But there's different ways that you can tackle this sort of issue without making it politically divisive. And from what I've gathered, it looks like Kevin Feige is going to lean into the route of what we've seen in movies in recent years, where it's just so on the nose and not necessarily timeless, which is what the X-Men should be, but more current day, which is something that's off-putting to a large swath of the movie-going audience. The X-Men movie, currently in development following Avengers Secret Wars, is rumored to be having problems where Feige is butting heads with Disney CEO Bob Iger over the direction of the movie. Worth a mention is that Iger exits Disney in 2026 and the X-Men movie comes out in 2027 or later. So take the view with a grain of salt. Yes, and these are also rumors, so you can take them with a grain of salt. But one of the things about Bob Iger is he was supposed to have been gone a long time ago. So just because he's set to leave next year doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be the case. And even if that is true, there could be a lot done with this movie by the time that he finally does exit. So even if they try to make some changes in post-production in order to make it more politically divisive, that doesn't necessarily mean that's what's going to happen, or they're not going to be able to get through what they want if things are basically already set in motion to the point where they can't really turn things around. Iger wants another blockbuster while Feige pushes social themes. According to X-User, main middleman, Kevin Feige originally planned a grounded, socially driven X-Men film centered on mutant identity and conflict with the Brotherhood of Mutants. However, Disney executives reacting to recent box office disappointments of Thunderbolts and Captain America Brave New World. Disney recently named Captain 4 as a fail in its investor reports, pushed for a more action-heavy, spectacle-focused script aimed at mass appeal. It's claimed the final version of X-Men movie will prioritize blockbuster elements and fan service with less emphasis on identity themes. And, you know, if you're spending this much money on movies, I think that's what you should be going for, just going for mass appeal. I mean, maybe people don't like to hear that, but when you're spending hundreds of millions of dollars, you need to have mass appeal in order for the movie to be a success, because there are some movies out there like, here, let's just take Thunderbolts as a good example. That's a movie that's pretty well received for the people who saw it, but the problem with it is they spent so much money making that movie that even with people who really love it, it's just not a large enough segment of the audience in order to justify how much they spent on it. Now, if that was a $50 to maybe $100 million movie, then they could say that there's some success with it because people loved it and it would have made a modest profit, but that's not what happened when it came to that movie. So you need mass appeal, which that did not deliver apparently. And it looks like that's something that they're wanting to have when it comes to the X-Men movie, not something that would be expensive to produce and cater to a niche audience, but something, if it's expensive to produce, that it'll have to cater to a mass audience. And while I've been critical over movies like that before, and I still stand by that, I think I would prefer a bunch of lower budget movies that even though they might not have the mass appeal, the people who do like it really love it. That's not something that you tend to get when it comes to these big budget movies. But I'm just talking from like a business standpoint. They're going to spend a lot of money on this movie. So they need to have something that works for everyone. And I think that's trying to avoid any divisive political elements would be the avenue that they would have to go down if that's what they want to achieve. Feige wanted a more grounded X-Men story with a plot that really focused on social issues and disagreements about what it means to be a mutant. He wanted a powerful, dynamic, a dramatic movie that really showed what the X-Men were all about, with the Brotherhood of Mutants as the bad guys. But that's not what Iger and Disney want. Aware of the poor performance of more restrained films, especially the disappointing box office results like Captain America 4 and Thunderbolts recently, the script has been requested to focus on a great event film to get a wider audience attention. So expect the MCU first X-Men movie being huge on events, focusing on box office with more action and fan service. Ideological issues will carry on, but they will be less important than dealing with something bigger. Now, I don't necessarily think that the movie should just be a spectacle-driven movie. I think you can have these themes within the movie itself. Like I said before, X-Men is pretty much ripe for including these type of social commentary elements within it. The problem is I just don't trust Kevin Feige to execute that in a manner that isn't just divisive and reminiscent of current day politics, which is something that people have shown time and time again that they're just tired of. Worth a mention is that the two big movies post Endgame from Feige and Disney/Marvel that have been a success are Deadpool and Wolverine and Spider-Man No Way Home. And I think it is important to mention that Kevin Feige really didn't have much creative say in those movies. Yes, they were released by Disney and Marvel, but they were basically produced by Fox and Sony, and Marvel just, and I'm going to say they were just the distributor for it, but that's kind of what they were. They were definitely apart from all the other Marvel movies. In fact, since Endgame, a lot of the Marvel movies that people haven't liked the most are the ones that Kevin Feige has been the most responsible for, I want to say interfering with, but having the most say so behind the scenes. And a lot of people will think like, what happened with Kevin Feige, kind of like since Endgame, because everything was good before that. But then afterwards, they've kind of fallen off a rail and there's been more overt political elements to it. But one thing a lot of people don't also take into consideration is that Ike Perlmutter was actually the president of the studio over Kevin Feige prior to the events of Endgame, and then he left afterwards. And then since then, that's when a lot of people have noticed the political themes in the Marvel movies have increased. We've heard rumors that they've gotten rid of a lot of the activist producers at the studios, but Kevin Feige remains, and it seems like he's actually the ones who've been kind of pushing that sort of agenda and just using other people as scapegoats when people have criticized what's been coming out of Marvel in recent years. So maybe it's Kevin Feige is the problem and he needs someone over him in order to kind of rein in him from trying to push elements that many audiences have felt has been divisive and has been detracting from Marvel movies in recent years. So it sounds like Disney and Iger want to have the X-Men movie be another big event film, while Feige wants to make the X-Men be about social issues. How's that been working out? The ex-user adds actor Thomas Brody Sangster, Game of Thrones, Maze Runner, Unkillable Wolf Hall is being eyed for the role in X-Men. Rumors swirl around X-Men casting and direction. Recent rumors also include that Feige wants to differentiate his X-Men from previous versions by going with black actors in roles of Professor X and Magneto, and also other actors who are pretty divisive, like Cynthia Erivo for the part of Storm. Now, I've even said in the past that I don't think that would necessarily be the worst casting, because at least it's not a race swap, but I don't think she would work in the role of Storm despite what she personally wants. It's also claimed, Cynthia Erivo with Kirby Howell Baptiste and Jodie Turner-Smith thrown into the mix. Patrick Schwarzenegger is rumored as Cyclops. I can see him doing that. And that's really all I have. So we don't know what's going to come of this. Like I said at the start, this is all just rumors at this time, but let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. Do you think it seems feasible that Kevin Feige is trying to push this, and Bob Iger, seeing how it's been bad for the company as a whole to push these sort of themes, is trying to walk it back? Or do you think both of them are on board with this, or neither of them are actually in favor of this and they just want to have a big event-driven X-Men movie like we've seen in the past? Comment below, and also if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And don't forget to click that like button and share this video out there, because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.